I don't speak well enough in Hebrew to do all this in Hebrew. Yoter kal li ba'anglit, that way nobody has a headache, okay? I'm David Smotrich. I'm the founder and medical director of Jolla IVF. I've been in private practice in the United States in San Diego for 22 years. I've been on my own for 20 years. My specialties are egg donation, surrogacy. I was the very first ever to do a male-male couple in the United States. That was 20 years ago, 1997. Okay, just to give you an idea. In the past few years, surrogacy has become a very hot topic in the United States as well as worldwide. Some of it is good. I'm not allowed to say, but I know this guy pretty well. Some of it is bad. People renting the womb out. In the United States, there's all sorts of things swirling around that women are renting themselves out, body parts, things like that. UK also has all these kinds of different tabloid things that make surrogacy feel dirty, look dirty, and not the true menschliche thing that it can really be if it's done correctly. Okay? It's a very important thing. Surrogacy has two definitions. Traditional surrogacy, where the same woman who is giving the eggs is the one who is carrying. So the woman who is carrying is genetically related. I see Victoria came in. In the United States, the laws are very different with regards to a woman who is genetically related to the child that she is delivering versus a woman who is not genetically related to the child that she is doing. Even in our state, which is the most open, as far as I understood, in the United States with regards to law, and whenever I have people ask me law questions, I refer them to lawyers, because it's better that you should talk to people who are experts in this. But my understanding is that our state, California, is very open. A lot of states say they're open, but sometimes you wind up having to adopt your own child. There are a lot of strange things. Victoria can also help you with this. Molly O'Brien is an attorney in California. Steve Snyder is an attorney in Minnesota. You have a lot of very good assets in this conference here to be able to talk and ask these questions. But if a woman is genetically related to the child, she has a lot more rights after birth than she would have if she's not genetically related, even if you have the contracts and even if the intent was for her to be a surrogate. Gestational surrogacy is a woman who is not genetically related, and we do very specific medical procedures to prepare her body to receive embryos to make sure that she is not genetically related. Again, as I mentioned, about 20 years ago, I was approached by a male-male couple. At the time, I was working with a center that had an IVF center in a hospital-based program. I went to administration. Administration had no problem working with a male-male couple, but again, many people in the situation, in the community did. Different doctors, different nurses didn't want to work with us. Had to move the case actually to a center in LA, so for about a year of my career, while I was building my own center, I was driving to Los Angeles, doing procedures in Los Angeles, taking my patients there, coming back to San Diego for everything else. That's how La Jolla IVF was born, and the concept that everybody should have the right to have a child is basically our mission. So we receive people, thank God, from all over the world. אני מדבר, speak Hebrew. También I'm speaking Spanish and Hebrew together, so I mix it up, but I speak Spanish as well. Our staff speaks Spanish. Ain't singing po, there's nobody Chinese here, but half my staff is Chinese speaking now. So again, we have a multifactorial place. Let's talk about more topics. Okay. Whenever I talk about this, I think it's very important that you understand that it takes a village, okay? There are a lot of people who talk about it's a one-stop place, okay? On the medical side, yes, we're a one-stop place. I have an IVF laboratory, I have an operating room, I have donors for a donor bank, we have eggs on ice, we have sperm on ice, we have embryos on ice, we have all the capacity to do the medical side. But in this area, it's a Little Rock Medical. It's not only medical. You have attorneys that have to help with not only understanding the laws about getting your children back to Israel in this case, understanding the laws that are different state to state within the United States. There are specific contracts, that are done, and you have to go to a reproductive endocrinologist to do the IVF part. You don't go to your cardiologist to do IVF. You don't go to the attorney who's your friend or your brother who's doing real estate law to help you write a contract on reproductive law. So you go to your reproductive lawyer. There are issues with insurance, things that are very important in international insurance. I've been asked several times, do you do 2 embryos? Well, many of my male-male couples want to do 2 embryos, where we get eggs from the donor, we split the eggs, put half from one gentleman, half from the other, put 1 embryo from each, and then B'ezrat Hashem, the woman gets twins, ta'omim, she gets pregnant with twins. Well, chas v'chalila, she delivers, let's say, 7-8 weeks early, and she has to be in the neonatal intensive care unit. So this is an issue for any patient, but it becomes a more intense issue for many international patients because it's difficult to get insurance that will cover the babies when they're in the neonatal intensive care unit, which costs about $100,000 per week per kid. So these are things that have to be part of the discussions. You know, what kind of health insurance, life insurance, the interest, again, for the agency, surrogates, do background checks. Are they who they really say they are? They need psychological screening, so it's done by a psychologist. They need medical screening, which is done by a medical team. There are legal contracts, as I mentioned before. Psychological written exam. Many a times they were talking last night, and they had quite a few surrogates that were talking last night. In the United States, not only are they screened, but there's encouraged to have continued support groups throughout the process. And so, you know, I mean, you don't get everything yashar. Everything is kind of like this, and there's ups and downs, and you want to make sure that the surrogate and her family has support. And also in this situation, most people are living quite far from where the surrogate is. So you need to have good communication. When I started this 20-something years ago, in on the Facebook. There was no Facebook, no Instagram, no Skype, none of these. I mean, I still remember telephones. You know, I'm blessed with 3 children. So my oldest children, one's 24, my son's 21. So I said to myself, I said, you know what? When I met your mother, I had to actually go up to her and talk to her. I mean, there was no Facebook, there was no cell phones, there were no computers. If you saw somebody you liked, you went up and you talked to them. And if you really liked them, you got your phone number. And there wasn't 10 telephones. There was 1 home phone, and you had to go through Savta, and you had to go through Saba, and you had to go through everybody before you got to talk to the person you wanted, if they were even home. So, you know, it's a different world, and support is very important. All the babies I'm showing you, by the way, are surrogate children from our family. Again, medical office is very important in terms of experience. Let's talk about medical screening for donors and medical screening for you as intended parents, okay? So in 2005, the United States federal government, the FDA, changed all the laws with regards to tissues going into a non-intimate partner. So everybody comes and says, why do I have to repeat this? I did it in Israel already. I have no infections. Why are you making me do this? Zelo ani. This is not me. This is the United States federal government. FDA has already inspected us 6 times. They show up with their badge. They're going to say, show us all your charts, because they oversee the things, and I'm on one of their lists as somebody who does a lot of surgeries. So, HIV, hepatitis B and C, HTLV1, syphilis, gonorrhea, chlamydia, cytomegalovirus, now Zika virus as well, all has to be tested in an FDA-recognized laboratory, which there only are in the United States. For our egg donors, it's done initially and within 28 days of the woman giving eggs. For gentlemen, it has to be done within 1 week of giving sperm. So most of my international patients, of which 75% of my practice are, for the men, 5 minutes. The Hayat, 5 minutes. Okay. Where's my Oscar? Seriously. I mean, we have to do testing. It's important for you to know where you are. I'm meeting a lot of gentlemen here who've never even checked their zero. Just because you have an ejaculate doesn't mean that you have good quality sperm. Anybody you're going to talk to, this is one of the basic questions that we need to know. Infectious disease, you should do it here. Genetic testing. Ashkenazi, we have genetic ra'im. We have the worst genetics because of the pale Zion, all this kind of stuff. Cystic fibrosis, tastes. All these things you should do pre-screen. In the United States, you have to be done. It has to be repeated, so get used to the fact that it has to be repeated. It's not because we're trying to be mean or anything. Most of the time, the gentlemen come over. We do a history physical. We do all the blood work. You do sperm. We freeze the sperm. You come back 2 or 3 days later. So now I have 2 sets of sperm. It's frozen, and it's ready to go. Egg donors, because I think it's very important to talk about egg donors. And I'll be talking again later this afternoon. They gave us a whole hour for 4 of us to speak. The surrogates, by definition, is a woman who's been pregnant before, never had any problems getting pregnant. Before I see a surrogate in my office, I call for all their old records. Did they get pregnant easily? Did they have any issues with premature delivery, high blood pressure, diabetes, thyroid disease, kidney disease? United States women are very heavy compared to America, compared to European, compared to Israel. If a woman is too fat, she has a high-risk pregnancy. She can have decreased blood flow to the uterus. She has increased issues with premature delivery due to high blood pressure, diabetes. These are things that we focus on. The woman comes to my office. Why do I require her to come in? Because we want to make sure that she's indeed a good candidate. So not only do I have a lot of experience with these women, is she who she says she is, besides all the other people that are checking on her, I want to be the one who's looking into her uterus because I'll be the one who's putting your embryo or embryos into her uterus. I want to make sure that she seems smart enough to be able to follow the protocols. Protocol I use for a surrogate, we use specifically to knock out her ovaries so that there's no way during the process for release the egg, 3 minutes. Beautiful. I'm going to speak even faster than the guy in the other room did. So, we use medications to knock out the ovaries hormonally so that there's no way for her to release an egg and therefore no way for her to get pregnant other than us placing your embryos into her. From the time I see a surrogate, till the time I can have a surrogate medically prepared to do a procedure takes about 8 to 10 weeks. Okay? From the time I see an egg donor till the time I can get eggs from an egg donor is about 6 to 8 weeks. Now, many of the agencies in the United States require couples to already have embryos created and frozen before they're going to match you with a surrogate. The reason for this is there's a big influx of people internationally, many of the Chinese couples that come, the women are much older and they don't have any embryos that are chromosomally normal, and you have a surrogate match with her ready to go, and there's no transfer because there's no embryos that are genetically normal. So I encourage you that through this journey during this next part of the day, to ask the questions about creating of embryos, what is the waiting list to see the doctors, what is the waiting, we don't have a waiting list in our office. I see people 7 days a week. It's not in Chicago, but that's the way it is. And this is how the process goes. Very important, again, genetic screening of embryos. We do a lot of pre-implantation genetics. Everybody says, oh, it's expensive, why do you do that? Okay? When we do genetic testing on the embryos, and again, if you have time, I'll be happy to go over this. I brought my lab book and we'll go through this more slowly. When we surgically remove a single cell from each embryo on day 5, we have results on day 6. We look at a whole chromosome panel, so we know if their embryo is normal or not. Just looking at an embryo, my embryologist has been doing 35 years of IVF experience in humans. There are a lot of people say, oh, I did animals for 12 years and now I've been doing humans for 5. 35 years in humans. Just looking at an embryo, even he can't tell you if it's chromosomally normal or not. It has Down syndrome or other things. Okay? Even with a young egg donor, as many as 50 to 60%, 50% of the embryos are chromosomally not normal. So those embryos either don't implant or implant and have a miscarriage. So what the PGS does is allows us to narrow down what are the best quality embryos to place. Each embryo that has undergone PGS in our center has a greater than 50 to 55% chance of implanting. So pregnancy rates are significantly higher, and then miscarriage rates are significantly lower. So in our patient population for all of 2016, where I did 355 egg retrievals, of which 250 had genetic screening, the miscarriage rate, loss rate of those patients that had genetic screening once they got pregnant was less than 2%. So a lot of people talk about high pregnancy rate, but what's your take-home baby rate? It's within 1 or 2% if you're doing PGS. The other thing I wanted to mention when I talked to a couple other couples is I'm hearing a lot about Georgia, I'm hearing a lot about Europe. In the old days we heard a lot about India, Thailand, all these things. No disrespect to those centers, no disrespect to those doctors. But in the United States, we have so many different groups overseeing regulations of what we are doing in our lab. 2 minutes? That was a long minute. That's good. I like long minutes. All these different regulations that oversee all the things that we do to make sure that what we're doing are indeed, how should you say, we're kosher, that you're doing things that are appropriate. And I wish all of you the best of luck on your journey. I'm going to be in the room outside the whole time. We're seeing patients individually. I don't think we have much other things that I wanted to show you. We're going to be talking about embryo transfer and things like that. These are different couples that we've worked with all over.
And you have the cattle.